I want to introduce Aaron Cooper, who is the co-founder and CEO of SameDay. SameDay's artificial intelligence will answer the phone and book appointments for you, just like your best salesperson.
Like, people just miss leads. You actually spend on average 4 times more per phone call than any other industry.
But I also think that some owners are like, hey, there's nothing else that I can do about it.
If you're missing 20 or 30% of those, it's insane. You would generate all these leads and not answer the phone.
Yeah, I guess that's the way that business is, right? They've just kind of figured that that's how they have to do it.
Sam Altman, the guy that created ChatGPT, I met him about a month before it came out. He was like, yeah, we have this like really cool thing coming out. Like, here's how AI is going to change the world.
This begs the question, Aaron, be honest with me. Is AI taking over?
Welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast, a podcast designed to help you become a bug money millionaire. Today's episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 course designed to help you start and grow your pest control company. I'm your host, Eric Bassett, and of course, with me as always, I've got Jake Klaus. What's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, Eric?
Not much. I'm holding back. I'm not going to give a weather report.
Oh, okay. I got something else we can start with.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that today it's cold outside, so makes me a little
Oh,
bit
you're
depressed.
still going for the weather.
Nope,
Okay.
I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. I'm holding back. What
okay.
do you got? What do you got?
Well, I was gonna say, this last weekend we just attended our Pacific Northwest Pest Management Conference in Hood River, Oregon. It's the annual big pest control convention. All the companies that count, right, come from all over the Northwest and converge on Hood River, and it's a lot of fun. It's like a big pest control family reunion, lots of networking, lots of great information. So Eric and I are kind of coming off of that high, the pest control convention high, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, it was an awesome time, dude. Lots of good speakers, lots of good opportunities. It's always fun to get guys from other companies in the same space and escape the typical weird we're competitors kind of feel and vibe.
The collab that happens.
Yeah, collaborate. You get to meet cool people, and you're like, wow, actually, you're just like me. We work for two different companies, but it's cool, right?
Yep. And we got to meet lots of cool people from the industry that are going to find their way eventually onto the podcast here because they've got a lot of great information and great ways to help grow and build the industry.
Yep. Yeah. And speaking of guests that we have on the podcast, today we have an awesome guest, and his platform was actually mentioned at the conference. Which I didn't bring this up pre-record, so this is probably going to be a surprise to him. But
I just saw Aaron's face. That was a surprise.
Yep. Yeah, Aaron's like, what? And speaking of which, Aaron, we're gonna hop in real quick. But before I introduce you, I just want to remind everybody listening, of course, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred podcast platform, like Apple, Google, Audible, or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, go to Bug Bucks. That is BUGBUX. We've got over 3,900 other pest control owners in that group waiting to connect with you and share their thoughts. It's also the best way for you to share your feedback on our show and have your questions highlighted and discussed here on the podcast. So make sure you find us on Facebook and join the group. Back to our guest, which I'm super excited about. I want to introduce Aaron Cooper, who is the co-founder and CEO of SameDay. SameDay's artificial intelligence will answer the phone and book appointments for you, just like your best salesperson. And speaking of the Pacific Northwest Pest Management Conference, the Hood River Conference, we had a speaker brought up AI platforms, and SameDay was in there, and we looked at a demo, and people had all sorts of questions, and I could tell that AI is this hot topic. So I'm super stoked to have Aaron on the show. Aaron, how are you, man?
I'm great. I appreciate you guys having me as well. It's always great to hear whenever there's been like some free marketing or something done out there in the world somewhere. So
picking up steam.
That's my intention. Yeah, hopefully the demo went well. I'll have to figure out who it was.
Yeah, Aaron's just like, there was a demo about my platform, and I had no idea. Right? Yeah, that's how you know that your marketing's working for you, when the platform that you're running is so interesting that other people are bringing it up and talking about it and selling it for you, and you never had to do anything to make that happen. So
yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah, the conversation went well, and there were a lot of questions, which we're going to talk about today. AI is one of those things that sparks some controversy. Some owners, depending on where they are, what generation they kind of represent, some dudes are kind of wary of it. Some people are like, assume it's going to happen. Some people are like, yeah, man, where's my AI features, dude? Like, come on.
Totally.
And then you got tons of people in between. So before we dive into stuff specifically about SameDay, I would love for our listeners to get some background on you specifically. How'd you get here? What's your history been like in the industry?
Yeah. So I was a technician and I was a pest control tech here in Utah for what year did I first get licensed? It was probably like 2017. And so I did a bunch of services on the side. I was the guy that people would call up if they had like a serious infestation of some kind. We don't really have termites here, but tons of like really bad pharaoh ants or different kind of obscure things at like apartment complexes. So I would do stuff like that. And then I got into marketing and got really into generating local, running local service ads, running Google ads, SEO, things like that. And started helping out at a company called Ardent Pest Control.
Yep.
And then eventually became the chief marketing officer there after a while, and was there for a while. And I think when I left, we maybe covered 10 or something, 10 or 7. How many locations we have? 10 locations? I can't remember. But did that, got into the marketing. But just something I realized, even after leaving there, I went on to do a lot of consulting for a bunch of pest control businesses, is like people just miss leads. Like you spend a lot of money generating these phone calls. You actually spend on average 4 times more per phone call than any other industry. And so,
is that right? 4 times more.
4 times more, yeah.
I believe it.
50
Wow.
to 80. And now I'm getting feedback now in certain markets, like people are spending over $100 just to generate the call itself.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's bad. And then
I'm
Google,
trying to act
that's not even,
surprised over here.
Yep.
yeah, pay per click. Yeah, no, really. The average CAC
Yeah.
for like a just a regular Google pay per click ad, not even an LSA call, is like $400, $500, $600. And the best companies are doing it for like 200. So it's kind of nuts. And so when if you're missing 20 or 30% of those, it's insane, right? Just to think about that, you would generate all these leads and not answer the phone and book them.
Yeah, dude, obviously, and people have heard me talk about this on the podcast before. My background was sales and marketing, and office dynamics, right? Teaching, training, development. And I've like preached like staffing so many times, like staffing and availability, because you spend so much money, like you said. Like we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing every year. And when I see a lead that just sits in an email, or like the phone's just ringing and like nobody can get to it, I get this knot in my stomach, and I get anxious, and I want to freak out, right? And I think that probably most owners are probably in that same kind of position. But I also think that some owners are like, hey, there's nothing else that I can do about it. I guess that's the way that business is, right? They've just kind of figured that that's how they have to do it, which is so sad. It's just not great. So when did the SameDay platform kind of become a thing in your mind? Like obviously you're hearing about this issue. How soon did you start working on SameDay?
Yeah, I believe it was October of 2020 or 2021? I started trying to figure out how to solve this, and I put together like a mock-up, like just a drawing essentially of a dashboard. And the original idea was, I'm gonna create this dashboard where all of the leads, I think this is kind of where everyone goes too, is like all the leads come into one place, and you don't have to have multiple browser screens open, and you can just like manage them right there and call them back super fast. And so I put together this and went to Pest World with just an iPad and these mock-ups and like 5-question survey, and walked around. I didn't have a booth, but I just walked around and asked people like, hey, like, what do you think of this? Do you have the same problem I did? How much would you pay for it? Things like that. And I got some people even to like sign up, even though it was literally a drawing. And then
Pest control owners will buy anything, right?
oh, for sure. No, I mean, obviously it's like, they're not going to pay me until it's ready. But
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
feedback though I started getting was like, hey, this is really cool. This dashboard's awesome. Now, can it actually though respond for me? Like, can it at least send a text message or something, immediately? And at the time I had I was a technician. I had a background in marketing, but at the time I had no comprehension of conversational AI. And this was like almost at least a year before ChatGPT came out as well.
Oh,
And
okay.
so,
So you're ahead of
yeah,
the curve on that.
yeah, a bit ahead of the curve. Matter of fact, I met the Sam Altman, the guy that created ChatGPT. I met him about a month before it came out. So I met
Oh,
him in San
crazy.
Francisco, and he was like, "Yeah, we have this like really cool thing coming out. Like, here's how AI is going to change the world." And
Yeah.
honestly, he didn't even know how big it would be. Like, it blew up to be massive.
Are you sure? Are you sure you really met the guy, or was he a robot? Like Android, impersonator.
Yeah, well, AI is pretty good these days, but robots aren't. And luckily
That's
we met
true.
we met in person, so I
Oh,
can I can
okay.
verify he.
He's
Well,
a
I guess
human.
I didn't check his pulse, but I'm pretty sure he had a pulse. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and so it just evolved from there. Certainly our first product 3 years ago, pre ChatGPT, was maybe okay, but we had a good amount of people that were willing to try it even then.
So how does it work? How does SameDay? I mean, just walk me through it. How does it work?
Yeah. That's kind of a loaded question, because there's like there's the technical side of how the AI works, and then
Okay.
there's like the platform itself, like how easy is it to start using, how customizable is it? So
Okay.
where do you want me
Wait a
to
minute.
start?
Okay. Okay. So pretend you're explaining this to a 10-year-old who happens to own a pest control company. I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, who
Got it.
doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to
Who doesn't
dive
know a
into the
whole
technical
lot about,
side.
actually don't pretend like you're talking to a 10-year-old. 10-year-olds will probably have a much greater comprehension of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're talking to a 43-year-old pest control owner and you just have
Got
to
it.
dumb it down. Yeah.
Got it.
We'll go that
Well,
approach.
well, I love to nerd out, so I'm glad you gave me the context so I don't, just go on this long-tailed tangent. But
Yeah.
essentially we've created this AI, this model that understands, in this case, pest control, right? So it understands all the details under the sun. Like, it's totally, the variables that it can handle just out of the gate are nearly unlimited, right? And so we've programmed it, we've trained it, we've given it the instruction to understand then how to sell pest control. So, I've managed large call centers. I even did door-to-door sales at one point, and all these different things. So we've then taken this AI that understands now all the context of pest control. Like, if we allowed it to, it's not allowed to, but if we did, it could tell you how to like do a subterranean, termite treatment, right?
Oh, crazy. Okay.
But we then train it on how to sell. And really, what if you really understand how like great inside sales teams work at pest control businesses, you don't want them to explain the treatment. You want them to give the customer enough information to feel comfortable, and then defer the details to the technician when they arrive,
Exactly.
right? And
Yep.
so we then trained it how to sell, and then with the AI, because a lot of this is already pre-built into it and is constantly getting better and better and better, you then come on as a new customer and you just tell it, okay, here's my business hours, here's my services, here's the pricing, whether it's recurring or not, here's the square footage, or if it's bed bugs, the number of bedrooms, things like that. So the AI can actually give quotes if you want it to. You can give it, let's say you use field routes, you can give us the API and put it into the AI, and it will look at your field route schedule and find a spot.
What?
And
That's bonkers.
and if the customer wants next day and there's only 2 spots available, and you tell it, okay, only give a 3-hour window, it's going to find that nice sweet spot, or go to the next day and explain to the customer, hey, like, looks like I only have a spot tomorrow. Sorry, good luck picking up your kids from school today, but we'll do tomorrow. Like, it's pretty savvy. So
Crazy. Okay,
yeah.
so let me just see if I got this right. So customer calls in, and maybe you have a phone tree. Press 1 for sales, press 2 for existing customers, or whatever. So they choose new customer,
Yeah.
and SameDay has a conversation with them. Do they know that they're talking to an automation, or do they think that they're talking to a real person?
Yeah, usually we'll have the AI explain, well, not even explain, but just say like, "Hey, I'm an AI." At the beginning of the
Okay.
conversation,
Mhm.
all our team is busy, or hey, like you're calling us at 1 a.m, but instead of going to voicemail, it doesn't say this, but this is what we're trying to get across, and we do a lot of testing around this. But like instead of going to voicemail, which I think the stat is 80% of customers don't leave voicemails.
Oh, sure.
Instead of
Yeah,
going to
why would you?
voicemail, I can answer your questions, I can give you a quote, and I can even schedule your appointment right now.
Whoa,
Man.
that's crazy. Okay, so the AI says you're talking to AI. Now, if you and I are having a conversation, I know that I'm talking to a human being. But if I'm having a conversation with, say, Siri, I know obviously that Siri is an automation and not a real human, even though she is the voice of a real human, but I know that I'm not talking to a real human. So how does that work with SameDay? Like,
Yeah.
does it sound like a real human?
Yeah, our voices are pretty good, and they're always getting better and better. I think with voice, especially when it comes to answering phones, voice is sort of one of the more complex aspects of it,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
because like everything else, there's going to be trade-offs, and so we're always improving it just across the board, but also trying to find that balance of like latency and having really quick responses, and then like a really human sounding voice.
Sure.
And I'm looking at SameDay's website, and I'm kind of taking a peek at some of the features in the packages. And speaking of voice, one of the packages says voice cloning. Gotta give me. So does that mean that if we had a voice that we liked or appreciated, like if it was my voice, I could clone my voice and the AI would sound like me?
Yeah, so
Oh,
all we need is 30 seconds of your voice.
30 seconds?
Okay. Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Hold on a second. So I listened to the audio version of Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin.
Yeah.
Could you like clone their voice? Like you can play the audiobook. So, Leif Babin answers the
Yeah.
phone is like, "This is Natura Pest Control. Thanks for calling. We're not here right now, but can it be like that, or
Well,
would
the way I'm supposed to answer that is with their consent. I could certainly
Yeah. Aaron's like, I don't
okay,
want to create any copyright problems here, but sure.
okay,
yeah.
okay. Can you do like David Goggins?
For sure, with his consent I could totally
Okay, sure.
copy his.
Husband's like, Carol, did you get a hold of Natura? Yeah, but there's all this beeping. I can't tell what he's saying. It's just a beep every other word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like, well, that's the other thing too, is like there's the voice, like you can sound like him, but I can match your personality too.
Ooh.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, this is getting like so sci-fi. This is the future. This is the future, right, Aaron? Like
It's
this is the
wild.
future that we've imagined for 50 years in science fiction, right?
Well, oh, go ahead. I think you're gonna say something, Eric.
No, I was just going to say, when we were talking about AI in the Hood River conference that we were just at, that's kind of the ongoing thing that they were saying is whether you use it or not, AI is going to be part of business moving forward. People are using it in multiple types of ways, and one of the ways that I think people are surprised by is the voice aspect. Like
Yeah.
the little chat widgets that we've had on like websites and other things, like that's been around for a while and it's been improving. And I know that I think you guys offer a text and chat widget section too, do you?
We have it built. We haven't pushed it live to any customers because voice is like definitely the big
Yeah.
problem. Phone calls are definitely a big problem. So it's like keeps getting pushed on the back burner. It's really easy thing to do. Like we already do it. We just
Sure.
haven't published it. But yeah.
No, and voice is so much more impactful, right? Like if a customer calls in and they can talk to somebody who you're able to have full control over what the voice is, like what it sounds like, their personality, you can customize the responses, right? I mean, it's AI, which means that it's learning how you want those customers to be interacted with.
Yeah.
And so if I had AI and it was my voice and the AI responds in a certain way, could I go in and say, hey, actually, when a customer asks this question, say this instead? Could I do that?
Totally. Yeah.
Oh,
So I was just helping a customer do that this morning. Actually, they were like, "Hey, what was this? What was this scenario? It was like if it's after hours, but if it's not this type of service, Like if and not even just this type of service, it was like if we have to do this type of service, but like let's use like pest control, like a pest control service, for example. If I need to come through and actually check existing termite monitors, then I'm actually going to charge you a $50 fee or a $100 fee. But if I need to come and just like look at some dust or not actually remove anything from the ground, it's a free inspection. And the AI had to understand that and make sure to figure that out before it gave a customer like a quote and schedule the appointment.
Yeah. So it's kind of
That's
like,
fascinating.
AI, I mean, and I've been helping coach and develop like inside sales teams for the better part of my pest control career. And like the tough part with inside salespeople, like human inside salespeople, is they'll say something and you'll say, "Hey, that's a great way to say that, but let's change that just a little bit. And instead, I want you to say this thing this way," right? You'll get a better result.
Yeah.
And because they're human, that transition takes a minute. Like it takes a while for them to really adjust how they say things and how confident they are and how they come across. But if you have an AI and you go into the code and you say, "Hey, remember that time you said this thing? Don't say that. Instead, say this." And instantly, the next phone call is going to be exactly what you just coached it to do. So
Yeah.
the turnaround time on the coaching aspect is wildly faster than with human, which is crazy.
Literally instantaneous. So we get tons of people that come to us literally every day. We'll do a demo where someone's like, "I'm using this answering service," which, I'm not here to bag on answering services or anyone's staff or anything like that, but we're using this answering service. But the problem is like, they're just having some problems answering calls, or like we get one person will answer the phone and it was great. And then another person in their staff will answer the phone and it just wasn't great. It was really, really bad.
Inconsistent.
Very inconsistent. Yeah. So we're like, well, great. I mean, the AI is always improving. It's like running Facebook ads with a salesperson. You're constantly able to A/B test and improve and improve and improve. And like, it never goes back. It never forgets. It's always on. So,
Okay,
Man.
so okay, so maybe if we're getting hung up on on an aspect that's maybe not like crucial to the business, but I find this just fascinating. So you have an AI, right? You generate an AI, basically an employee that's AI, right? And they have conversations on your behalf. They converse with the customer.
yeah.
Now, is this kind of like is this like an NPC, like a non-player character in a video game where the character is scripted to only say these words, right? Like in Jumanji with The Rock. Remember, there's like the NPC driver of the Jeep, right?
No,
So it's like adaptive and fluid. Like it actually has a conversation.
Yeah, no, it's totally fluid. We do spend a decent amount of time like making sure it's compliant. So, different states have different rules, things like that, especially like who's allowed to quote certain types. Like I think it's Florida, you can't quote termites unless you have a license whatsoever.
Sure.
Whereas there are some companies that are like, "Hey, I want termites included in my recurring plan, like the premium package." But like technically in some places, like you just can't do that regardless. And so, making sure it doesn't make those kind of mistakes. But otherwise, yeah, like if you pry, like it'll tell you almost anything you want. And so we do also teach it from a sales perspective, like, "Hey, don't go down the rabbit hole." Matter of fact, use the rabbit hole as an excuse to get our technician there to then go down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
What?
Smart.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, I think
Okay.
it's interesting that there are, speaking of compliance, you're going to run into situations like that, right? Like, who can quote based on what level of activity or what requires an inspection. I think it's interesting though that a lot of the rules and regulations are based on real people, right? So it's like if the regulation is that, oh, like a person cannot provide a quote based on termite activity without this particular license. Well, this isn't a real person. This is a computer, right?
Yeah.
Like this computer can't possess a license, right? But can this computer look at a picture or look at evidence of a situation and then use its vast knowledge through the internet and database to diagnose a problem and circumvent those situations. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night, right? Like people are having to probably redo legislation because SameDay and other AI platforms come in and circumvent stuff, which is just wild to me.
We haven't seen it. We haven't used it to like particularly. I mean, it'll diagnose termites, meaning like I need to, so in order to schedule like a termite inspection. So we do a lot of testing on customers that don't know what they have. They're just like describing if it's termites, right? It's like, oh, I have a park bench in my backyard and there's like this dust on the ground, you know? But one thing that it did sort of on its own, and we were like, oh, that's really cool, is if you call it and you're like, you know, hey, I have spiders, pretty standard stuff. So the AI goes into scheduling a recurring service. And it's like, okay, can you tell me the square footage of your house? And you're like, well, I don't know the square footage of my house. Well, then it started describing 3 different types of houses. Like, would you consider your house to have like this many rooms and this many floors? Or this many? And it's like, okay, well, since you chose that one, your house is most likely about 3,200 square feet.
What?
And you're saying this did it by itself?
Did it on its own?
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay. This begs the question. I'm sorry, I just got to jump in here. This begs the question. Aaron, be honest with me. Is AI taking over?
No, not yet.
This is a bad time. This is a bad time for us to find out that Jake is a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
And all the reels that he sends me on Instagram, 90% of them are conspiracies.
I don't believe all of them. They're just fun, right? Like I don't know if there was actually a cat on the moon with Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. I don't know if that's real or not. I doubt it. It's just fun. Is AI taking over though? I mean, how's that working?
It's getting good. There's the thing is with AI right now is there's like artificial intelligence, which is what you see everywhere now. Then there's this whole different version of it called artificial general intelligence or AGI.
Okay.
And so the AI that we use and pretty much everyone uses, ChatGPT uses it, these types of like just standard large language models, is essentially you have a number of parameters anywhere from like a couple billion. I mean, it could technically go lower, but like most people for like really good use cases will have a couple billion, all the way up to like I think ChatGPT uses like 70 or 80 billion parameters, and they're like it's like this web of nodes that are like interconnecting. They're like this web of or decision trees. And so when you're training the AI, you're going through and training each of these 70 billion decision trees to give preference to, let's say, if someone says the word fleas, the law of large numbers is going to say, well, based on all the world's conversations, I heard fleas, but they probably meant to say please. And so it's going to make the decision to say they said please to me. Well, for pest control, we're going to train it to give preference to fleas or other relevant topics of these like 70 billion parameters. And so you're able to do that in fractions of a second, milliseconds. You're able to run through 70 billion of these decision trees for each piece of text that you feed to it, right?
That's crazy.
Well, artificial general intelligence doesn't require like necessarily an input. And so like it is able to consistently be running through these topics or these questions on its own and then constantly altering and just improving. Like, like it has like its own general function that it's trying to do all on its own. Whereas AI that we use now requires you, like, for example, to say something to it, to give it an input so that it can then output what it's been trained on. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Eric. Eric, I know Eric has questions too, and I'm sorry, I just keep jumping in because I wish that this episode were like 2 hours long because I have so many questions. Okay, so I was listening to this other podcast. Other than this podcast, this is my favorite one, obviously, but I was listening to this other podcast, and the host was interviewing a relationship expert, and the relationship expert was saying, there's this huge decline because of the internet and social media and isolation and all these things, where we're actually seeing a huge decline in men like taking the initiative to ask women to go on dates, right? So there's this huge decline in dating because of artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. And that's obviously a big problem in society, right? Does
Yeah.
this kind of technology have the potential to where instead of like swiping right on a Tinder type of thing, where there's like artificial artificial dates that you go on and you have a conversation with an artificial person, or have an artificial relationship instead of having a relationship with a real human, somebody that is programmed to say all the things you want to say and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Is that a potential, or is that already happening, or what?
So basically, like, can I create my own like dating profile and use it on Tinder but it's actually an AI that people are talking to?
Or could you, as the company, create a platform where there's no real people at all? People just plug in their
Yeah. That's
parameters, and then it creates a virtual partner for them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there are companies that are doing that in one way or another currently. Like, I mean, I could technically. I mean, you give me 3 minutes, I could make you I could take our AI and make you a girlfriend if you want.
That's
But
Oh
no,
my gosh.
I've already got the perfect woman at home anyway, so I don't
but
need
no,
that.
it's there's definitely people doing it, and it's definitely possible. I think, that's not very hard to do, is basically the point I'm trying to make. Like, it's pretty easy to do that. I think the difference is, like, where do you remove the input? Like, where. So
Yeah.
if I have a virtual relationship with an AI on my phone here,
Uh-huh.
how is it going to know without me either telling it when to do it, to like start reaching out to me or to ask me if I had a bad day, or things like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of the difference between like AGI and regular AI.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Jake brought that up, because on my phone the other day I had this pop up, and I just looked it up right now, where a man uses AI to talk to 5,000 women on Tinder and finds a wife, like found a woman to respond to. And he
Dude.
was quoted at saying, "At some point, the project wrote me a recommendation that maybe it's time to propose to Karina." Like, he like put in the parameters for the AI. The AI made matches, asked questions, had conversations based on the preferences and parameters, and then delivered him the best matches along with its recommendation on who should be its wife.
Bro cracked the code. That's what he did.
Yeah,
Bro
dude.
cracked the
And like,
code. That's crazy.
and and circling back to pest control, as owners in pest control companies, we want employees who take initiative, right? We want employees who look at a situation and they go, okay, like, I need to take initiative to fix this problem, or I should ask more questions. I should get more information. And I think it's really cool that what Aaron was talking about was that without even writing it into the code, the system was like, okay, I know I need to figure out how much square footage is with this house. And when the customer says, I don't know, the AI pivots and says, okay, well, how can I figure this out?
Yeah.
And it just keeps going down that line, because with some employees, if they say, hey, what's your square footage? And the customer says, I don't know. They go,
Oh,
okay,
okay. Well,
let me put you on hold for a second. And then they put the customer on
yeah.
hold, and they go to a manager and they're like, they don't know what their square footage is. What do I do? The manager's like, what?
Ask some
Right?
questions, right?
And so it's really nice, from a training perspective. Like, we talked about how instantaneous the difference is when you put your input in, and how quick the AI system is to pivot when it needs to gather more information. And I've talked to a lot of other totally nerdy AI dudes about this, and AI is just getting started.
Yeah.
Like, the way that it processes information and what it can do for you, I mean, we're barely scratching the surface here. So I know that SameDay, even as good as it is, it's just going to get better. And on your website, it mentions SameDay V2, and so I wanted to pick your brain just real quick. And we're running out of time, but so V1 is what's running right now. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between V1 and V2, and what can our listeners look forward to when it comes to V2?
Yeah. So we had like a very, very early version, like, that we started with years ago, and it was pretty rough. V2, there's pieces of V2 live in our current AI. But then there's pieces that we're still working on, and that is where the AI is very proactive for you. So, one thing that I've seen with like pest control businesses, especially, is if you have a pest control business, let's say you have like a couple techs or even 20 techs, they're constantly at your customer's house. Like that is like, Area 51 or whatever the word is. Like that's the place that the problem's going to be. And so technicians are always identifying things. Like let's say they're there treating for ants and they find some termite dust. And technicians, they love to kind of nerd out over that kind of stuff. If they see termites, they get really excited about it. They put it in the Slack channel or the text group with all the other technicians, and they talk about what they saw, right? And then they put it into field routes or they put it into whatever platform, and then it gets forgot about. And I've seen pest control businesses that are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month because their technicians are identifying things, and it's getting lost into the notes for that customer, and it never gets followed up on. And so the AI, just like it says on our website, like just like your best salesperson, it's not just able to like give a quote, but also identify the best opportunities and then proactively go out and find them and set those up for you, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Hey, okay, so I got to ask you this. Is the idea that SameDay, actually this is a question, it's two parts, is the idea that SameDay will replace employees, thereby saving the company the cost of employees and also improving performance? That's the first question. And the second one is, what's the upper limit of technology like this as it relates to pest control companies?
Yeah. Is the idea that it will replace people? I never sell it on that. I actually spend a decent amount of time like training or spending time with office staff at pest control businesses and showing them how to become like prompt engineers. So with this whole growth of AI, there's this whole new position that's been created in the tech world of what's called a prompt engineer, which never existed before. And it's basically someone who's more, I describe it more creative than anything, but able to then give really good thought out instructions to the AI. And so I spend some time like teaching the office staff, like, hey, if you want to make some custom adjustments or try your own changes, like, let me show you how to do that. Like, what are some of the best practices, And
Interesting.
So
okay.
Do people choose to replace their office staff with it? I'm sure like there's definitely companies, we have some customers that are doing hundreds of thousands of phone calls, even almost millions of phone calls a year. And so for them, it might be like a numbers game that way. And like the AI definitely saves them anywhere from like a 1/10 to about a 1/7 of the cost,
Okay.
of what they were paying before. But it also increases or can increase their revenue because of all the consistency and because of all of the ability for it to improve. Like the AI is not only overcoming objections, using like the standard pickup lines that a door-to-door salesman might use, right?
Right. Yeah.
But instead, like the AI is like our AI, at least, like we train it on like identifying personality types.
Okay.
And, adjusting not just what it says, but even how it says it. You know what I mean?
Oh man, that's wild.
Dude.
Okay.
Yeah, when it feels like AI is going to be a tool, right? Like it's a tool that business owners can use to enhance their efforts, right? And also provide just a little bit more availability with their staff. Just like you said in the beginning of the conversation, pest control owners were struggling to find people who could keep up with leads, right? Or your staff's just overbooked and you're like, I don't have the time to train or hire somebody. I don't have the money to do it. But the AI, as soon as you get it programmed, is infinitely scalable, right? I mean, it can answer the phone as many times as you want based on what kind of setup you have squared away. So, I think for the people and business owners might be on the side of AI where they're like, oh, machines are taking over our jobs, right? I think you just need to know that AI is designed to be a tool that your team utilizes to become better, to become more efficient. And, like Aaron said, if you use it to kind of replace a few staff members here or there, if you get that good at using it, then, hey, you're saving money and it's going to be an awesome money maker for you. But at least at this point, I don't see it taking over anybody's entire office or, uprooting the sales force or anything crazy like that.
You don't see it becoming the cheeseburger ordering kiosk in the McDonald's lobby that replaces 3 front counter workers, right?
No, it's not Skynet level scenarios or anything, but
it's actually funny. So Google, one of the guys I'm connected with, he's like the director or VP of AI at Google or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he started an initiative like a year ago, like, hey, like here's the most complicated use case, and that is like AI for like drive-throughs, like order taking, because it's just like so many ways the conversation can go. And there's this problem when you're training AI as like a computer to like carry context through the course of the entire conversation.
Okay.
Anyway, I was like, man, I wonder if our AI can do that. So I like found this local restaurant and like created this like catering ordering AI. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like it was able to do it. Like it carried the context. It understood, oh, you want to change this item in your order. And like, I didn't have to add any like special database or anything else that would typically like make the AI really slow and bogged down. So
dude,
it's
wild,
progressing.
Man.
It's progressing insanely fast. I mean, I can't say what it'll be like even in like 6-12 months. Like it's
that
nuts.
fast. That much growth.
Wow. I'm looking forward to it, man. And I think we might have forgotten to mention this at the beginning of the episode, but SameDay is a premier vendor for BugBucks Plus.
Oh yeah.
So if you guys listening are interested in SameDay, I want you to know that for both BugBucks Plus and BugBucks Facebook group members, you get some special discounts. You get some special treatment. And Aaron and his team are awesome. They'll definitely take good care of you. But of course, from BugBucks, we want to make sure you get the best deal that we can. And Aaron's been awesome with providing some killer specials. So, Aaron, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they reach out? What's the best way for them to talk to you about SameDay?
Yeah, I mean, you can email me directly, just aaron@gosameday.com. You can also go to our website, which is gosameday.com, or also SameDay.ai. And there's a few links on there just to schedule a demo, which will go to me or one of our sales guys. But at some point in the conversation, whether it's with one of our sales guys or girls or not, like I'll typically chime in and get involved as well. So
awesome, man. Well, thanks a bunch for this. We'll have you back here in about 6 to 12 months because, like I was saying before, AI is just going to keep getting better and better. And I'm excited to have you in as a partner for BugBucks Plus. We can keep talking to you, keep picking your brain, and just follow this AI journey as it starts changing the industry that we know and love. So
really, I appreciate
everybody. For everybody listening, of course, we appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in. If you have a coworker, manager, or an owner who you feel could benefit from listening to this episode, the best way to say thank you to us is to share this episode with them. Of course, it's brought to you by BugBucks Plus, the #1 course designed to help you start and grow your pest control company. If you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, go and find the group. It's BUGBUX. Lots of information and great connections in that group. Thanks again for listening in, and until next time, keep building those pest control companies.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.